So, just the two things. We got a Right Stuff package that arrived, I guess technically Friday, but I didn't pick it up until yesterday. And then today's DVD update, which is small, but still something, I guess. And I guess we'll begin with this since it's on top. I purchased this because since this was released on DVD and Blu-ray, re-released on, that means it's dubbed. Like I said, it says down there, new English dub. You can see on the back it says English and Japanese audio. Region A only, so no Region B. I'm trying to remember anything about this anime other than very vague impressions, but I don't know. Now it's kind of not a good time for me to remember details, especially details of that sort of age. Let's see, and even though it's a small update, the reason this update is being posted so late is just because that's how late I stay up. I just started recording pretty late simply because, well, the weather down here is threatening to be icy. So I didn't get together with my brother, but instead we played online, so the time limits are a bit more not as well defined, I guess. Although we still... So, okay, we got the same image on the first discs, and this time disc 2's share. And disc 3 here is unique to the DVD version. And then next up we've got Wagnaria 2, which would be the second season of Working. Which is kind of funny because you think that a name like Working is a very pronounceable name, but Wagnaria almost seems nonsensical, except of course for the fact that it's pretty clearly the name of the restaurant, I think. I don't remember the first season too well, so I'm probably going to rewatch that before I do this. So here we have the advertisement. We actually have advertisement for the Naruto anime, which I'm looking forward to seeing. For the discs, we have disc 1. This is disc 2. This is disc 1. There we go. And I remember some things about this series. It's just, I could probably remember a whole lot more if I've rewatched it. So nothing particularly spectacular about the discs. They just have veggies on them. But that's okay. Did I actually take a good look at the box? Some neat artwork. And then of course the book, which I just set aside, which is probably going to be your standard NIS book. NIS-A, which is composed of, you got face views, side views of characters, I swear one of these days I'll actually poke through these and not simply watch the anime. Because there's a lot of stuff that could be read. I'm just kind of not in a rush. Don't need to be in a rush for recording the video either, since those two things are pretty much it. I don't even think I picked up any video games. I did try to grab Bravely Default, but as expected, since I tried to get it from GameStop, since I hadn't pre-ordered it, they didn't have any extra copies, so whatever. I probably wouldn't be playing it now anyways. So that's this week's anime DVD collection update. Pretty small, kind of like the things I watched, which doesn't seem all that spectacular, but I guess there are 3 things in there. So, um, this isn't exactly the order I watched everything in, but I guess we can begin by talking about the Pet Girl of Sakurasou, which I mentioned I was watching. I was kind of finding amusing because even though it was doing fairly stereotypical things, I felt like the anime was very refreshing in its method of pulling it off. Like, somehow it was more convincing that these characters would set up these cliched situations. And after that, you see, I watched it and I completely forgot that it's a collection one, so I was thinking, okay, so it's getting close to the end of the anime here. This is looking to be a pretty good ending, actually. And if it had ended there, I probably wouldn't have been none the wiser if it weren't for the fact that there was actually a preview at the end of there. I'm like, wait, episode 13, is that an OVA episode? Do I have that? Do I not have it? Oh, it's 24 episodes. Oops. But, overall, I thought it was fun. The first half, I think, is actually pretty solid. It's nothing that's necessarily groundbreaking. You probably won't watch it, and it won't change your mind about anime like something like Evangelion would or anything like that. But, nonetheless, I thought it was a very pleasant watch. I'm looking forward to watching more of it, hoping I don't forget the few things I remember now. But I think the characters kind of left a good enough impression that I should be pretty good, pretty well off. Next up, I watched Akito the Exiled. I rewatched the first episode before watching the second episode, partially to refresh myself. So the general flow and some of the twists of the first episode I remember fairly well. And so there was just more intricate details about the motivations of the characters and stuff that I probably wouldn't have remembered, and it helps make for speculation, because I think right now with Akito the Exiled, we know that there's Geass involved, because we know it's a code Geass. We just, I'm not sure if we entirely understand the nature of it. We've been given a lot of hints so we can make guesses. And I'm not going to speculate myself since that could be spoilerific. But, I don't know. One interesting thing I noticed was that Akito the Exiled Episode 1 kind of begins with its major action sequence at the very beginning to try and catch the viewer attention. And I mentioned before that when you coming from the action sequence in Code Geass, it feels maybe a bit more rushed and in your face, sort of. Not necessarily bad, but kind of not the sort of thing you would absorb, which is kind of unfortunate, because rewatching I kind of realized they tried to do this political stuff, which I'm not even quite sure is entirely convincing. I was commenting with my friend that the anti-Japanese racism of the European Union seems somewhat bizarre, at least in the original Code Geass. That made sense, because it was Britannia and their superior view of the world existing on the land of a conquered people, and so it kind of made sense in there. In Code Geass Akito the Exiled, it kind of feels out of place. And I do recall it feeling out of place before, just maybe not as clearly as I did this time, such that I can articulate it here on the camera. But that said, it's still kind of curious and interesting. One thing I kind of mentioned at the end of the first episode's review that I remember, and same kind of worry this time, was the preview for episode 2 showed characters from the series itself. I'm like, if you're trying to make this not too related to that, I don't want to see too many characters from Code Geass. I want it to be something that stands not necessarily on its own 2 feet per se, but doesn't stand on the feet of the main characters in the main story from the first one. I want it to be an appropriate side story that doesn't try and feel like a milked cow or milked franchise or whatever. And so, second episode, I can say that they did pretty good there. I don't think that the cameo appearance by Suzaku was anything more than kind of a cameo. It kind of introduced something that's probably going to be relevant for Code Geass Akito the Exiled, but nothing that really makes the series dependent on Suzaku. More of a yay cameo. So it works kind of good. Sort of like I guess I don't want to mention that. That's a particularly fun moment in that anime. So I guess I'm not quite sure what I could describe it as being like, because that other thing was the best example that came to mind. Oh well. So I mentioned that the first episode put its major action sequence at the beginning. The second episode is actually kind of nice because it puts its major action sequence at the end, and there's a very clear build-up of them going to there. Now, all in all, I thought it was kind of good, enjoyable, a bit of a rush, and interesting and thought-provoking. So, I guess if I were to complain about episode 2, it's just that at this point you feel like they can't settle on trying to tell a story. It feels like they keep introducing new characters, and even worse, it's making a lot of them very extreme, I guess. Like, it's a good character design to use, but I almost feel like the series is overusing it a bit. And I'm a bit worried about what's going to happen in the future, because it's I don't know. And then there's also the problem where, because of the quick nature of the combat, it kind of feels like you don't get as much time to really bring in a lot of things they did. They introduced at least one new mecha that was interestingly designed. Actually, I guess the first episode introduced another interestingly designed one, and it's kind of hard to appreciate them, I thought. Oh, not bad by any stretch of the imagination. A bit more action-y, and I thought the action in this second episode was probably better than the first because, again, the entire episode sort of builds up to it. And it adds to the story in a good way, so overall, nice watch. I'm interested in what will happen in episode 3, but given that episodes 1 and 2 are each released December of their respective years, it probably means it's not going to be another. It's going to be another 10 months, 11 months before I get to see episode 3. Definitely going to forget stuff by then. Oh well. And last but not least, I watched the Steins movie, and it was pretty good. Now, naturally, it's Japanese with English subtitles. It was actually not that hard to transition. There are a couple of voices that are very different between the dub and the sub version. Chances are, if you get used to the characters in one, it might be a little tricky to go to the other. But that aside, content-wise, I actually felt like it covered something that was an important point in the series, but not really explored too in depth. A part of me was thinking that it wouldn't be too spoilerific to talk about that aspect, but I think I'll leave it alone so that you'll find out what I mean. I wouldn't necessarily call it unresolved issues per se, so much as that's a good place to explore more information. For another similar example, Puella Madoka Magica Movie 3 is kind of about a similar sort of idea. A hanging point not covered in the series that is expanded upon, and they're both pretty good. And I am looking forward to watching the third movie again in April when it comes out. For this, excuse me, I wonder if there's anything else I can say. But I guess because it's just a movie, there isn't a whole lot to say other than I thought it was enjoyable. It's a bunch of good anime to watch. Now, fortunately, I'm more settled in Starbound, so more anime is likely to happen as long as I don't get terribly distracted by other non-anime things. There was a vicious cycle there. I think I might have mentioned that to somebody. Not y'all, but yeah. So, all that aside, today was obviously a small update. I can't help but think that at some point there was maybe something else. And maybe that was Kami-sama Kiss. But looks like that might have been pushed out a bit. At least the version I ordered was pushed out. And I ordered the Goddess edition. This is an anime I specifically said, oh, this limited edition set is only available on Right Stuff and not on Amazon. Sorry, Amazon, I'm not going to order through you. Nothing personal to Amazon. Just it seems to me that would be the more interesting edition to explore. And I thought when I checked recently it had a February 11th release date, but I guess it updated recently to February 25th, which makes me think that one's been pushed a bit. It's pretty unusual for Funimation to do that, but that could also be related to the very unusual step of making this super limited edition version anyways. I don't know. And because I was curious and read what it's about, I'm actually very curious to actually watch it. Sounds like a different take on a similar concept from Kamichu, which I have to say could be good or bad. Might have a bit more of a shoujo twist to it. So, don't know what that'll mean. So, yeah, I guess I never mentioned that I ordered that, and I'm just pretty much confirming now that whenever that's in stock and ships, that's what we'll have. Otherwise, I think next week actually looks like a pretty damn big update, and the week after that is pretty big too. Could be right. So, we'll figure those out as we go. Otherwise, I can't think of anything else I was going to mention, so y'all have a nice week.